So, listeners, I just want to key you up before I say hello to my partner here. He's promised that he's going to pretend to laugh. And I think this one could actually make him at least chuckle, if nothing else. He is laughing now for reference.
Authentic laugh. I'm laughing about the fact that I'm supposed to laugh.
Welcome to another Tradies in Business episode. I have a great joke today. It's a bit summary because I'm not quite sure when this is going live, but I guarantee it's going to be warm somewhere in Australia. Warwick, why couldn't the lifeguard rescue the drowning hippie?
No, Nicole. Why couldn't the lifeguard rescue the drowning hippie?
Because he was just too far out, man.
Oh. All right. Listeners, welcome back. I've just been far out myself and decided to come back to the microphone. For those of you watching the YouTube version of this, you noticed that I just sat here and didn't go anywhere.
Groaned internally. Nicole, yet again.
That wasn't terrible, Nicole. It's not one of your worst. I think we're going to rate your jokes backwards. Instead of going, oh, that's a good one, that's one of the best, we'll go, no, that's one of the worst. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up because then we can just only get better.
Can only go up from there, I'm sure.
Now, I love a good cheesy slap you in the face segue. I would say the same about many people's leadership skills. Can only get better.
That is a real slap in the face, that one.
So, Amanda Rosazza, welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, team. And A+ on the segue there. That was just amazing. Crushed it.
He's very good.
Probably almost as bad as Coxie's joke, I think, or maybe worse. Now, Amanda, you are one of a long line of fabulous people who have spoken at our Tradiepreneur conference at the back end of 2022. And so it's always great to get some of our speakers back and to come and talk on the podcast so that our non-tradiepreneurs, I mean, why would you not want to be a tradiepreneur?
It's true.
So that our podcast listeners get a bit of an insight into some of the cool people that we get to come and share their knowledge and their wisdom with our clients. So awesome to have you on the podcast today talking about, well, I think leadership won't be the only thing based on what we heard from you at conference. I'm sure you'll cover some ground, but tell our listeners a bit about yourself, Amanda.
Sure. So my thing is culture, really passionate about helping organizations to improve their culture. So, and not just about improving it, it's about building a high performance culture. Mm-hmm. So, and for me, I look at it through three lenses, or we look at it in three different ways. So leadership experience, customer experience or client experience, and also employee experience. So the experience that our team's having. And once we have all of those three in alignment, challenging can be done, then we're setting ourselves up to win. That's my jam.
Nice.
How did you come to be doing this, Amanda? This is as we spoke about off air, can be a challenging area to work in. How have you fallen into this?
That's a long story, Nick. How long do you have? Hours. The short version was I was always passionate about helping people. And I did go out on my own as a life coach. And then that sort of started to shift more into the corporate space, so corporate training and facilitation. And then one day I was at Disneyland, of all places, and just experiencing what the guests were experiencing and seeing how much the cast members enjoyed their job. The cast members are the employees for those playing at home. Surely, as humans, we can create this in our own businesses. Surely there's ways to do this. So that sent me on a bit of a deep dive into how did Disney do it? How did Virgin do it? How do these major players that have a reputation for having amazing cultures do it? And then I started to move more in that direction. So it all kind of started with a trip to Disneyland, I guess.
Wow.
Great place for you to do something different. I love it. I think, Warwick, it surprises me how often a common theme or a common denominator comes out with our guests. And we've been talking quite a bit of late about, I think, the customer-based experience and how that can completely transform what a company can look like and the outcome for the business owner in a company. So it's interesting that you've risen that today. I want to ask a really blunt question about leadership because
I love those.
Have lots of people reach out to us all the time and saying, generally it's the wife. If I call it like it is, quite often the tradie wife, and they're reaching out and saying, my husband really sucks at leadership and we need some help in that area. And I want to know, well, what actually is leadership from your point of view, Amanda?
Right. So there's a couple of ways we can look at it. First thing I like to say is, okay, so we've got managers and leaders. And the easiest way to set that up, so we're not going through lists and lists of things, if we think about those with a fixed mindset versus those with a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you both talk about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having that growth mindset, so a leader is a visionary. They're open to different ways of doing things. They're open to looking at, okay, is this working? Is it not? Not just staying in this narrow band of how we've always done things, and these are the rules and these are the regulations and this is what we do. Being able to step outside that,
mm-hmm.
seeing the gray, not just the black and white,
mm-hmm.
and really being able to show up in, we talk about servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here for my team, and I'm here to make sure that I'm getting the best out of my team, not just to follow systems, processes, and rules. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I think that it's really interesting, the complex range of answers we get when we ask that question back to the person who's saying, oh, this person sucks at leadership, because we all have a really different understanding of what leadership could look like.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's having often the ability to inspire others.
Absolutely.
Which is very much what you've just said in a nutshell. But that means that you're nimble. It means that you're not fixed, like you're saying. And so have the opportunity then to, I guess, play above the line, which is a concept that Warwick and I talk about a lot.
Absolutely.
And that is being open to all of the possibilities on the table, taking ownership for your position in everything. And I guess showing by example, leading by example is so often the key. And that's where I think many are unsure how to do that. We're not taught how to be leaders. I think some people are very naturally leaders and others aren't. So I guess my next question would be, is it a skill that we can learn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I do leadership development programs, that's the first thing I do. I split the room, born or made, leaders, born or made. And it is possible. So you can be born with traits that lend themselves to leadership. Also, everyone can develop leadership skills and traits as well. So the other thing I want to add to that is leaders are not do as I say. They're very much come with me. So it's a completely different vibe. So, and being able to teach people how to, like you say, influence and, get people to follow them essentially what we're doing, is about teaching them to create that essence or that persona that encourages people to come with them. Yeah.
Amanda, is there a place for both leaders and managers within organisations?
Oh, I love this question. So I don't think I have a firm answer for that yet. I'm still grappling with it, just being brutally honest. So there's this argument that you can't have too many cooks because you'll spoil the broth, right? Also, I feel that everyone can display leadership qualities within moments, within a context, as long as there's a hierarchy of that leadership. So I'm honestly still grappling with that one. I'm leaning towards everyone can be a leader in their own right. If you're going to have a gun to my head, was.
Yeah, I have done a lot of work in this area personally in my own businesses, and also obviously as a coach and mentor.
Yes.
And I think there's been a bit of a view, probably with business coaches and life coaches and leadership trainers and all that sort of stuff, that one's better than the other. And I think that's a bit of a human trait where, well, this is good, this is bad. And we have to make everything good or bad. And so I see a lot of people almost downplay management as inferior or undesirable. My personal opinion on this is probably like what you've said, Amanda, just, trying to agree with you so you don't hate on me or anything. Is I think aspects of management are really important for running a business.
Absolutely.
And if you're dealing with people, then you need leadership qualities within that role.
Yeah.
If you're just running a machine that doesn't have anything to do with people, then you can do that as an absolute out and out manager.
100%. Yeah.
But we're all dealing with people. So we all need to learn how to get the most out of those around us. Yeah. Those damn humans.
They just keep coming back.
Amanda, how do you motivate people to change?
Oh, excellent question. So we can influence, we can't motivate. Sit with that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So motivation is very much an internal thing. I can absolutely influence you. I can show you the benefits of us going in this direction. I can even show you what the potential pitfalls are. I can get you pumped up. I can get you excited. Ultimately, though, the motivation is internal in that human. So influencing people is about understanding what's important to them and speaking to that, and also understanding what's important to the organization as a whole and being able to tailor that message to each individual human.
I think it's gives a great insight to something we bang on at our Tradiepreneurs about, and that's involving your team and understanding what your company goals are, and then how they can directly relate back to the team, because we're all, whether we're in business because we want to create a lifestyle or whatever that looks like, it involves money at the end of the day. And our team are there because they need to earn money to pay their way in life. So there's already a connection that we don't often acknowledge, and there's a way to really further connect that so that we understand that one leads to the other and together we do it. So it's a great chance to have your team buy into that, but it's really important that it's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
I think we're long past now, or maybe not as long past as I'd like it to be, but we are still moving through those times of where it was you do what I say and you do it now, to more of a collaborative approach when it comes to our teams and leading them through what needs to be done. There's a body of work that needs to be done. It needs to be done in a certain time frame, etc. There's a way to help them get there, so that they feel that they want to be part of that. And there's a way to totally demotivate them and make them not want to do anything.
That's it. And just to add on to that, one of the biggest issues I see out in the wild is we don't tell our people why we're doing something. And they feel like they've been given this task and it's just busy work. If people understand the why, and we say, hey, we need to get this done by 5 p.m. This client's got, a showing coming up next weekend. We need to have it ready so that they've got the shots ready for their marketing. It only takes you an extra 15 seconds to explain why we're doing what we're doing. And they're like, oh, okay. Oh my goodness, I totally get it. Let's get in and get it done. It's when we're just giving them busy work and they think that you're just dictating your personal agenda to them that it becomes problematic. And the second piece of that is when we've delivered on time and we've done an amazing job, show them what the results of that were. So being able to say, hey, these are those marketing shots that they were able to get because you guys showed up and got it done for them. And hey, they were able to sell this property or whatever the outcome might be. So yeah, just those two pieces, the why and then the outcomes, just so important. And it just gets neglected so often.
I think one of the best lessons I ever learned was a hard one, and it was in an exit interview of a team member that had been working quite closely with myself and my husband in the business we were in. And she had two real sticking points, both of which are very valid. And one of those sticking points it was a building company and she never got to go out on site and see the finished product. Never even thought about it. Showed her photos. She was privy to all of the client communication, so received all of the accolades, etc. She had very close relationships with them, but not actually getting on site to see what the outcome was enough for her to consider leaving. So it was a great opportunity for learning myself. It's not something I'd considered because I had a different lens, and that's it. A different outcome for me than what she was looking to achieve. And we don't tend to think about that as business owners. We're so busy, stuck in our own lens, trying to move forward. We're not thinking about the other lenses. So what you're talking about here, the leadership experience is mine. The employee experience is my team, and then the client experience at the end of the day. I'm sure my clients would have loved to have met her in the flesh and had the opportunity to brag and show off their new home that she'd been a very big part of as well.
Absolutely. And that's how we create those emotional connections. So then she's got an emotional connection to that project and to the client and vice versa. And then she can take that into the next project. It's gold. It's gold.
Absolutely.
So, Amanda, I hear lots of people talk about team culture. And they talk about it in very reverent terms because it seems very smoky and hard to pin down and mystical, and nobody really seems to know. Well, when I say nobody, most business owners really struggle with this. They're like, they hear all this stuff that's like, we need a solid culture and team culture drives this, and as a leader we should be fostering great culture, and they're like, so how do I do that? Have bowling nights or beers on a Friday? Like, what's team culture and how do I do this thing? Is there have you got a simple way? I mean, I know I'm asking a huge question here, but is there some ways for people to get a better understanding about how they can influence that, to use that concept that you were talking about before of influencing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's exactly what you say. It's an intangible. It is literally like trying to grab onto smoke culture. So if we sort of zoom right out, so our culture is the way we do things around here. So that is such a sweeping statement, right? That's the way we do things. So it's our vision, it's our mission, it's our core values, as long as we're living by them. So if they're written on the wall or they're written on our desktop wallpaper, or, we got a card in our wallet, that's nice. Are we living by them? Are they part of our common language? So the easiest way to answer that, it's like anything that you do. If you're going to be a healthy human being, so body, mind, soul, it's every little decision that you make on a daily basis that decides what you look like, between 20 and 50, right? Or 50 and 100. So that's exactly with your culture, exactly the same thing. So it's all of these little decisions we're making as leaders within the organization, how we're communicating, how we're giving feedback, having team nights, all of those little decisions that we're making, they all add up to create our culture. I realize that's a very zoomed out way of looking at it. It's little 1%ers we're looking for, little things we can do on a daily basis. You can, of course, ramp things up, have team synergy days. You can do culture surveys and take actions, very deliberate actions on them. You can do personality profiling on your humans and take deliberate actions on that. So there are ways that you can zoom a bit forward. Also, it's the little decisions we're making on a daily basis.
So if a business owner is listening to this and they realize, as many of the trade business owners we speak with do, that I think I've got a culture problem. There's a bit of blaming going on. There's people shirking responsibility a bit, maybe some people taking the mick. And the business owner often will say, I know I've got to do something about the culture in my team, but they don't know where to start. Is there somewhere they should, take the first actions?
Somewhere. Full stop. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it is one of those things. It's just we've got to start somewhere. So whether that is getting someone in like myself or yourselves in to take a look at it and go, okay, so what is actually going on? And let's just decide to start here. It's literally just making that decision. Okay, I'm accountable for the culture in this organization as a leader. It is something I'm going to deliberately take steps towards changing, and here's where I'm going to start. So it could be the logical one for me. There's always going to be a challenging human in your team. There'll be someone, and that's a great place to start. So, and I was talking to someone earlier today about they had a problem. Sales team member who he's the guy that had been there the longest and had just, they'd gone through a lot of change management over the past 3 years, big changes within the way the systems and the processes and the way they get things done. And he just was not on board. So it's about having that conversation and saying, okay, I'm curious, what's happening with you? You were here. And, when you're having these difficult conversations, as I'm sure you always share, we got to stick to the facts, right? So here's our data that says you were here and now you're here. What's going on? And coming from that place of curiosity, we're not here to confront anyone or make them feel bad. It's just, I'm purely curious as to what's going on. Is there something going on in their life? Are they not passionate about it anymore? And discovering what that is and working out what the way forward is, performance management plan, or maybe it's just time for them to go.
Yeah. Probably my next question is about teams. I've had a few rotten eggs. I had a whole team full of rotten eggs at one point.
Brutal.
It was brutal. It was hard to pull it back, and some had to go and some were able to stay. And my experience isn't the rule. I'm interested to know, is it possible that there are just sometimes bad eggs that don't fit into the culture of your company?
Yes. So there are, and this is when I'm working with clients, sometimes they can be molded and they can be, they've just lost their way. Yep. They've just become complacent. So complacency is one of the biggest things that we see. Also, there are people that are there to clock in, clock out, and you're getting the bare minimum from me. And that's just how I show up as a human. And if that works, that's okay. If it doesn't work and it's affecting the people around them, that's when it does become a problem. Then we need to look at, maybe they're doing their job to a standard that is potentially acceptable. Also, they're not living by our core values. So that's sort of when we need to look at it through a different lens. But absolutely, they're just not the right person for the organization. No,
I knew it to be true, but needed to lead you into the same answer just to validate me today, Amanda. Thank you.
Oh, anytime.
It's people are complex, and I feel like that's probably the number one frustration for any trade business owner that we speak to, but in actual fact, any business owner that we speak to, right from people that are running organizations with hundreds of staff to the guy in a van that just has one subcontractor or one laborer or one apprentice that he works with. Another area that we find there's a lot of frustration at the moment is in what everyone deems to be the next generation. I think it's a common frustration. I really want to bust the myth. I don't think it's just millennials, or I don't think it's the next generation. It's every generation, and there's a disparity between how I communicate and how they communicate.
That's it. Yeah.
I'd love to hear your experience on that, Amanda, and what you see, and I guess how we can start to change the way we think as business owners about the next generation.
Yeah, look, it's easy to point the finger and say, oh, they've just had everything handed to them, or they've got a silver spoon in their mouth, or whatever, whatever the general rhetoric or dialogue is around the new generation. They need solid leadership. And I'll always come back to that. I've seen in different companies, different businesses, it's often the person that's been there the longest that is the biggest problem. So it's not a generational issue. It can be, not to completely discount it. It's not what they think it is. So like you're saying, Nick, they don't know how to communicate. Because there's just a difference in how they've been raised, what the world looks like. So, I didn't have a mobile phone until I was, 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Whereas, 8-year-olds have them now and younger. So it's just different. It's just different. So, and we need to be aware of that and make room for that and be curious about it. And instead of just being like, just millennials, or they're just whatever, this new generation coming through, instead, let's ask, okay, how can we work better together? How do I get the best out of this person? What do I need to do differently? How do I show up for them so they show up for me?
I feel like that's such and it speaks to a question that I want to ask you is what I hear when people are saying, young people or men or women or accountants or whatever, people who have worked for big companies or people who have worked for themselves, I can't work with them. It's such a victimhood state, and it's so blamey. And so my question is, how often is the culture problem the leader themselves or the business owner themselves?
Very often.
Other than always.
Look, I didn't want to poke the always stick. Also, most of the time they're at least a bigger contributor than they believe they are.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. And delicate. That's why, right. Yep. And it's easy from, I guess, a position of power, for want of better phrasing, to think that everyone else is the problem. It's like, well, actually, we're going to start with you. How are you having the difficult conversations? How are you attempting to get the best out of this person that's an absolute nightmare to deal with?
Yeah.
So are you asking the right questions? Have you actually asked them what's going on in their world? No. Okay. Well, that's a problem. You know, that
That's
type
right.
of stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Spot on, boss.
For every client listening, this is why we talk about weekly one-on-ones.
100%.
End of lecture.
100%.
That's a big difference.
Full stop. Yes.
Yeah,
and,
free tip for our listeners as well.
Yes,
do
exactly.
weekly one-on-ones with every team member.
Literally. And just it's around, if we're not doing that, we're not giving them airtime.
Yeah.
They're not seen, heard, or understood. They're just a cog in the machine, right?
Yep.
So we need to give them that airspace, or airtime rather, so that they can tell us what's going on for them, and we can talk about, you know, their development and how we improve things. Yeah, it has to happen.
And this is going to make me sound really old, and I'm going with it anyway because I think it's important, because a lot of our listeners might have had the same sort of learning when they were younger, probably not as old as I am. Curiosity kills the cat, right? That's the statement that we all grew up with. I can remember mum and dad saying that I would be called a sticky beak, and I would be told that curiosity would kill the cat, and that'll be me if I'm not careful. And yet I think it is the most important part of being, or one of the most important parts of being a leader in any role, whether that is within your family as a parent, whether it's within your friendship group in being a great friend who's able to listen and contribute, whether it be within your organization or your team, in all areas. I think curiosity is really important. How do we go about having people understand what natural curiosity looks like, instead of it just being sort of chest poking questions to get to an answer that they won't get that way, of course?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to frame it up is literally, and it sounds crazy, I'm curious statement. What happened last Friday? Literally verbalizing that you're curious, asking the question, an open-ended question.
Yes.
And let them speak. Super valuable.
Novel concept.
It is. And so many people don't, and Nick, I've never actually thought of it that way. That's really, I'm curious about that concept now, because I grew up with curiosity killed the cat, and I did not develop my curiosity until much later because, and, you know, we're told to, you know, stop asking so many questions and you know, get back in your box kind of thing. But yes, ask all of the questions.
Yes.
And be curious and do what you can to understand the people around you. Absolutely. And that's the first thing, again, in leadership development, is I talk about, we need to develop that curiosity muscle.
And we need to teach it and encourage it for those under us, so that they have the opportunity to grow and learn. Because you can't grow and learn if you're not able to ask questions about a task that you're performing, or why we're performing it, or why does it need to be done that way. Lots of the people that we talk to take that as almost an insult. Why would you ask me? I'm telling you to do it that way. Rather than understanding that specifically, actually every person thinks differently than the one next to them. And when we go back to that generational conversation, they think very differently to the way
that's right.
think. And if we're playing above the line and we're open to the possibilities, there is an opportunity for us to learn through their curiosity and find another way to do something that might actually turn into a cost saving for the business, or something to be done more safely than it's been done before, or not doing a task at all because it's actually not necessary anymore. There's another way to do it. So I feel like not only developing that curiosity muscle for yourself as a leader, I think then it's learning how to encourage others to be the same. And that probably really just starts with a little bit of patience.
Absolutely. A little bit of patience and just encouraging people. Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I used to really struggle with this, and I don't know if it's a male thing or if it was my dad's mentoring. And I see this show up a lot in business owners, but particularly in tradies. A lot of our value is placed in what we know.
For sure.
So to ask questions and be curious implies that I don't know the stuff and I don't know everything. And that was a big shift for me when I started coaching, and I changed my entire career path, because great coaches ask great questions.
That's
And
it.
great mentors ask great questions to challenge people to think for themselves.
That's it.
Consultants have all the answers, and there's a place for that.
Mm.
But as leaders, and I think as business owners, if you're listening to this, it's actually more powerful to ask great questions, because you need to know what questions to ask. And I think that's a higher level of knowledge and way more valuable than feeling like we've got to have all the answers to how everything should be done. And I've designed all the systems and everybody just do what I say.
That's it.
Instead of actually involving the people in, okay, how do you all think we should do this?
Mm.
But having the bigger picture in mind. You talked earlier, Amanda, about that sort of zoom out strategic view, and that's what I have found some of the leaders that I've worked with over the years, they're able to hold that view and then dive into the detail with people from a questioning point of view.
Yes.
And have that like almost childlike curiosity
That's
you're
it.
talking about. It's like, oh, wow, so how did we come up with that way of doing things here at my own company? Tell me more about that.
Tell me more. That's it. Exactly. It's gold. It's amazing. Absolutely.
Another vulnerability, I think. And I think I wish if I could have a wish, and as a parent, you do this often. And when I was a younger parent, I used to think if I could give my kids anything, it would be self-esteem. Yeah. What I would really like to give my kids is the opportunity to be curious and to be vulnerable, because in vulnerability, everything shifts and changes, and we have the opportunity to be curious and be open and learn, rather than getting stuck in the knowing and the I know-itis that we see far too often, that pigeonholes you, like you were talking about earlier, rather than leading you into that leadership space where you are able to influence.
Mm.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. Curiosity is even just, leadership, and as an entrepreneur, we've got to solve problems all the time, and they just keep coming. So we've got to be curious from that perspective as well. So powerful.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are afraid of that because, it's giving up control. It's such a complex issue. But as a business owner, and I've seen this with clients over the years, literally leave coaching and, leave the relationship with their coach because they feel like they're inferior by, having someone else provide them with guidance or advice.
Interesting.
And I wonder if sometimes employers, business owners, leaders, they bump into this with their team members as well, who are closed to feedback and questioning, because even as a team member, we probably feel like, well, if I don't have the answers, I don't have a job. So to ask questions is like, what, don't you know how to do your job, mate? So I think it's like all of these things, it's a two-way street in a relationship. And for those listening who want to get better at the leadership piece and build better culture, I think not only do we have to ask the questions, but we've got to make it okay for people not to know the
100%.
answers.
Yes. Yeah. So that's about creating that safe space to ask the questions, because if we don't, like you say, just, if I ask for clarification, they're going to think I don't know how to do my job.
Yeah.
So it's about creating those feedback loops, and how we can assist with that is something I found really effective. And you might already be talking about this, but when we give someone a task, asking them to repeat it back in their own words to us.
Nice.
Looking for those gaps, and then having that qualify or clarification conversation. So super powerful, and it saves us so much time as well, because we checked all that out from the beginning. So and that little things like that is what creates that environment that you're talking about, so that we're creating that environment where we can ask questions and we can support each other through curiosity as well.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. All right, Amanda. So picture this. You have now you didn't quite have this many in the room at conference, but it was not far off until we hit this number. You have 1,000 tradies in a room, or I should say trade business owners to be correct. 1,000 trade business owners in a room. What's one piece of advice you would like to leave them with?
Oh my goodness. I think I know I'm going to talk about curiosity again, but that's the number one thing I always try, like anyone that I encounter, be curious. When we're curious, we're more likely to solve problems. We're more likely to create amazing relationships with the humans around us, and we're more likely to I know I'm linking these things, but we solve problems for our clients. We solve problems for ourselves. We solve problems for our team members. It's gold. It's that one.
Love that. It doesn't kill the cat after all.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. In fact, the cat lives longer because we took it to the vet to get treated. So that thing we were curious about. So it's gold. 9 lives instead of 7.
And if you don't go around eating rat sack when you're not supposed to, you'll be fine.
Pretty much,
anyway. Sorry, that's how my brain works. I'm very curious as to how it works, and nobody should understand that. So, Amanda, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, team. Pleasure.
Been some fantastic tips in there. If our listeners want to go and find out more about you or stalk you online, what's the best way to do that?
The best place to stalk me is LinkedIn. You'll also find me AmandaRosazza.com. So Amanda, ROSAZZA.com. And but LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time. I hang out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice to hear a LinkedIn person. Normally it's Instagram. So yay for LinkedIn.
I am on Instagram. Please go and stalk me there as well. We post 3 or 4 times a day on LinkedIn, and that's where I do my videos. I am going to start doing more on Instagram in 2023.
Yeah.
There you go.
We all have those idolations. We may get there in 2023 ourselves after years of saying we're going to do this.
Reels. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, this is the funny part, team. So I do the reel like on Instagram to post to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I could just post it on Instagram as well. So
that's
madness.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time, Amanda. Great to speak with you.
Thanks for having me, team.
Pleasure.